Okay, good. Good evening, everyone. I'm William Mullen. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment Management, and welcome to this presentation. This is Unpacking Financial Aid Packages, Financial Aid for New Students. This is a basic 101 of financial aid that new students and parents are going to need to know in order to apply for financial aid. I'll go over some real basics about it. I don't process financial aid for Willamette. I am not a financial aid technician, so there might be some technical questions that I can't answer, but we're going to go over the basics to make sure you understand financial aid and how to apply for financial aid. This presentation is being recorded. We will share it with you at one point. It's going to take us a couple of weeks to produce it. The last slide, I will have links to a number of different topics that I discuss, and we will get that to you right away so you can review those as well. So for today, we're going to talk about, oops, here's me, I'm Vice President William Mullen at Willamette University. And the presentation is going to be, the first thing is just about some terminology, decoding financial aid speak, understanding differences between cost and aid. We're actually going to go into a PDF or the paper version of the FAFSA application. I'm going to show you that briefly. I'm going to pull up a Willamette University financial aid letter, award letter, and we're going to go over that so you can see what that's going to look like. And then I'm going to offer some tips and a few insights into financial aid. And then when we're done with that point, I'm just going to open it up and allow everyone to ask questions about financial aid in Willamette University. Again, we're not allowing chat or questions during the presentation, but we'll have plenty of time at the end to answer any questions that you have. Okay, let me talk about financial aid, first of all. So financial aid has a number of terms and terminology, and it can be very confusing. And it is oftentimes required for us to use this terminology because we are a Title IV institution, meaning we participate in federal and state financial aid, and we have to follow a certain number of rules and regulations around how we do these things and how we call these things. So I want to go over the very basics with you. So first of all, I want to talk about some of the terminology with tuition. So tuition is the academic and instructional costs. So tuition is usually broken into per credit tuition, and then most institutions have a full-time tuition band. It's usually between 3 and 4 classes, and that's typically what students take to be full-time students. So there's tuition by credit, tuition per full-time enrollment. Tuition is usually billed by semester, and financial aid is also awarded by semester, not by year. It's awarded by year, and it is applied by semester. So we also have fees as well. So fees can be anything that's above and beyond tuition. Labs, recreation, some other miscellaneous costs. At Willamette, we have gotten rid of all fees for the following year, with the exception of one, and that's the student activity fee. And that's a fee that students pay for various activities, and they can choose what they want to do with them. So we have actually gone about reducing the number of fees here at Willamette. So then we have a couple of other terms. One's called direct costs, and that is the combination of tuition, fees, and room and board. So when a college or university actually bills you after financial aid and after you matriculate, this is what we will call direct costs, and this is what you'll pay to the institution. We also are required to estimate indirect costs, and these can be things like books, travel, supplies, all kinds of other things, health insurance, and so on and so forth. Typically, you don't pay the institution for these things, right? The indirect costs, but we have them as part of the cost of attendance. And that's tuition, fees, room and board, along with estimated indirect costs. And that's the full cost of attendance. Every institution will break it down like this. The indirect costs might be estimated a little bit differently from one institution to the next. We all should be relatively similar though. All right, let's talk about financial aid. And there's a whole set of financial aid terms as well. I call it financial aid speak. So, and let me just make sure we understand all of these different things. So scholarships. So scholarships are monetary awards, usually given to a student on academic achievement. The funding from these typically come from the college's endowments or other institutional funds. They don't have to be repaid. So in other words, they're free money, and that's what we like. Willamette has a combination of merit scholarships based on academics, and some programs have competitive scholarships too. And if you've applied and you've been admitted to Willamette, you'll get information about competitive scholarships as well. Then there's grants. Grants are different than scholarships because they're typically based on financial need, and they're awarded after a family and student complete the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA as we call it. The funding comes from multiple places. The college or university has need-based grants, again, coming from the endowment or other institutional funds. The federal Department of Education has grants as well, the Pell Grant and the SEOG, or the Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. Got that right. State programs also have grants too. The state of Oregon also has a grant program for students with need who are state residents. These also don't have to be repaid. So then we have student loans. And these are loans granted to students based on financial need, again, awarded after completing the FAFSA. The funding comes from the federal Department of Education, and these don't need to be paid back. I'm going to talk a little bit about other student loans, but I'm talking specifically right now about federal student loans. Then there's federal work-study program. So federal work-study is we get funding from the federal government, which comes to us that allows us to pay students for wages to work on campus, in campus jobs. This is also based on financial need. So you have to complete a FAFSA in order to be eligible for federal work-study program. But just if you don't receive federal work-study, that doesn't mean we can't hire you. We do hire a lot of students to work at Willamette, and we hire students. We try to give preference for students who have federal work-study, but oftentimes we have students that have both a federal work-study and who don't have federal work-study working at Willamette. Okay, let's talk about applying for the FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid. So there's a number of things that they're going to ask you about in order to start the FAFSA application. You're going to need your social security numbers, and the student's going to need the student's social security number, and the parent will need their social security numbers as well. The federal government uses social security number as the student ID number to connect their application and enrollment with their financial aid. This is how they do it. I wish they had another methodology for this, but this is what they're currently using, and they've been using this forever. They will ask you for your driver's license number if you've got one. They'll ask you for federal tax returns from 2020. That has changed about 10 years ago. So it is your income from the previous tax year. So if you're applying in 2022, it's not your taxes from 2020. You don't have to get your taxes done super quick. It's from the previous year. I want to say something really quick here too, in that past couple of years, people's incomes have changed considerably from 19 to 20 and also from 21. There is a possibility to do a financial aid appeal, and I can talk a little bit about that in the question and answer if people have questions about that. Bank statement, and any other records of money, investment, untaxed income, and so on and so forth. And then you have to put in the student code as well, or the school code. Our school code is 003227. Every college and university has a school code. It's usually pretty easy to do Google search to find those. Okay. So let me just go through the process a little bit, and then I'm going to actually show you this thing. So the way they do it is you create a FAFSA ID, which allows you to log into your account. And you have to do this process first. I would recommend writing it and keeping it someplace where you can remember it, because you'll have to use this each time you go to the FAFSA. You as a student and the parents have to have separate FAFSA IDs. So My daughter's in college right now. She has her own FAFSA ID. I have my own FAFSA ID. I've got mine written down. We're going to be working on it probably over holiday break here. You can also use this ID to come back to the FAFSA. Everyone does it online now, and I highly recommend that you do it online as well. So if you don't have everything, if you're missing something, don't worry, you can start it, come back. Important thing is to get it started and get it going. It's not that difficult. It takes about 30 minutes. It's much easier than applying for your taxes. You'll have to do this every year where you're enrolled in college. So if you're at a college for 4 years, you'll be filling out the FAFSA every year for 4 years. And I think the last point for me is really important as well. So I do talk to families and students who say, you know what, I'm not going to complete the FAFSA. We know we're not going to qualify for anything. We had another kid in college, for example, the student didn't get any financial aid. But just you should know that not only does the federal and state governments provide financial aid for students, Willamette, we have a reasonably large endowment as well. Actually, it's pretty large, $347 million. So we provide scholarships too on multiple criteria, some of which are not, income is not an important part of that criteria, but we do require the FAFSA and many of these scholarships be awarded. So even if you don't think you're going to get federal or state money, I would recommend completing the FAFSA. It's really important. You might get some free money. It takes about 30 minutes to do this application. Okay, I'm going to get out of the presentation and pull up the FAFSA application. So hang on a second with me. Okay. So here I have the PDF of the FAFSA application. Again, let me just scroll to the top. There we are. So this is the PDF or the paper version. This is the way we used to do it back in the days of old. Nobody does this anymore. It is nice to have this, and I will have a link to it at the end of the presentation, which will be sent to you. It is nice to have this, to look at this thing, to get an idea of what they're going to ask you in the online version, and it's the exact same stuff. But I want to go over a couple of things I think that are important here with this. So there's going to be two parts. Step one is for the student. They're going to want name, contact information, social security number is really important, driver's license number if you have one, the state, email, all of these kind of things. They want to make sure that you're either eligible non-citizen or U.S. citizen, so on and so forth. Get an idea of your marital status. This is the student they're asking this about, because there are students who are adults who apply for financial aid as well. So, and then takes you through that, the number of the level of schooling the parents completed as well. There are particular scholarships for first generation students. Ask you some more about your school. They'll ask you about the grade level that you'll be in when you start college and the degree you're looking for, right? So there's a little bit more information about the student's income. So if the student had a job, has income, apply for taxes, then you can fill out this component as well. Information about, if they have a savings account, these kinds of things as well. They want to know a little bit more about that. Then step three for the student is the Federal Department of Education wants to determine whether or not the student is independent or dependent. And they have very strict rules about this. 99% of our students at Willamette are dependent. These questions, if you're unsure, these questions will help you determine whether or not a student is independent or dependent. Mostly if the student is either married, has a child, or was in the military, they're considered independent. But they keep adding a few things to this as well. And again, if you're unsure, you can go and have a look at this to get an idea. Then we have the parents. So again, the Federal Department of Education wants information about the parents and both parents, social security numbers, names, date of birth, this kind of thing, email addresses, so on and so forth. They're going to ask you about your income and some other benefits and whether or not you've completed your financial aid or completed your taxes. They do have the data retrieval tool that you can utilize online. I would recommend that. That allows the Department of Education that runs the FAFSA application to go in and pull your tax information into the FAFSA. It's quite slick. They started this, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. It saves a lot of work, saves you from filling out this form again, but it's pretty easy. You basically just take the different lines from your tax return and just fill in these different fields here as well. If you can't or don't want to do the data retrieval tool, go through a number of questions about your income, untaxed income. And then they're going to ask about how many people are in the household, how many students are going to college simultaneously, because that does impact financial aid. They're going to ask about the different colleges and university, and they give you what, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5, I think, schools that you can fill in. And then they're going to ask you to sign it and send it off. So again, this is the PDF or a paper version. The online version, again, is the same exact thing. They've got all these disclaimers and all this information on it as well. So let me pull up the presentation again. Hang on a second. Okay. So now let's talk. So what happens is when you complete the FAFSA and you put in Willamette's code, we get your information. It comes to the financial aid department. The financial aid department looks at the student's record and sees if the student's admitted. If the student's admitted, then there'll be a financial aid award letter. So the financial aid award letter is going to be mailed to you, but it's also going to be posted in your applicant status page as well. So you'll get it in a package as well as electronically. It will go through and list the different types of aid awarded to you, and we break it down, and I'll show this in a second. All the different types of aid that you qualify for. If you only have a merit scholarship on your award letter and nothing else, that may suggest that we have not received your FAFSA application. So if you have applied for the FAFSA, and all of a sudden you get your award letter and it only has the merit scholarship on it, we probably don't have it. So you may want to check in with financial aid or the admissions department and see if we have received it. So I want to talk about private loans or alternative loans or Parent Plus loans as well. We don't include that in the award. Some colleges and universities do include that in the award. You don't automatically qualify for it. You have to go through another process. It does require an additional check on credit and some other things as well. So we think it's most ethical not to add that as part of the initial award. In some instances, it could be very helpful for students and families, so we make it available to them, but you need to contact the financial aid office if you would like to apply for a private loan or Parent Plus loan. Willamette also has payment plans as well. So if you've got a particular bill and you want to for tuition and room and board, and you want to pay it over a series of months, we allow you to do that as well. So we're also going to give you a worksheet, and this is a new thing, and I'll show you a prototype in a few minutes of this worksheet that allows you to compare our award to other colleges. So we'll pre-populate our award, and then you can write in the other schools. So you can get an idea of what the net costs are for you. As you know, tuition is different at different colleges and universities, and scholarships are different at different colleges and universities. The way and room and board is different at different universities. Best way of doing this, adding up your direct costs, subtracting your awards, and that will give you your net cost. So the admissions team can walk you through this and help you with these basic questions and how it compares. And then our financial aid staff is very seasoned here. They're very helpful with families. If you got complex or technical questions, these guys are real pros and can help you out through all of that stuff as well. So you've got actually 2 offices that will help you with financial aid at Willamette. Okay, let me show you the sample financial aid award letter as well. I'll pull that up here. Here we are. Okay. So the sample financial aid award letter. So basically there is a little letter, thank you, so on and so forth, how to submit your deposit and contact information. And then it breaks out your award into the different types of grants and loans. So we have, again, as I mentioned before, Willamette scholarships and grants. And again, those come from our endowment or other sources of funding. We have different names for them: impact award, scholarships, so on and so forth. Then we got federal and state grants. This particular award doesn't have the state grant on it, but there's two kinds: is the Pell Grant and the SEOG. And then there's the loans. Subsidized loans means that the interest is paid for by the federal government while the student is enrolled full-time. And 6 months after they graduate. Unsubsidized means that interest accrues while after the loan has been issued. So here's the financial aid available, broken down by semester and then total. And then we go through different definitions about this. Oh, here's federal work study as well. And some information about payment plans and alternative loans as well. So then we go through the cost of attendance and try to break this down and make it really simple too. So here's tuition, here's the fees, here's the basic double room. So we'll do an estimate of that. We'll do a meal plan as well. So estimate direct costs. And then we'll just break it out and say, okay, so the total direct costs minus your financial aid, this is what you're going to be billed at, right? So then we'll talk about indirect costs, as I mentioned earlier: books, supplies, personal health insurance, these kinds of things. Go into some definitions here, just make sure you fully understand everything that you're getting here. Talk about the payment plan as well. Here's the alternative loan programs too. And that's the award letter. I'm going to show you one more thing too, and this is a prototype. Hang on a second. We haven't printed this yet, so you're going to see something that is brand new. We also have a worksheet that we're going to include as well. So if you can see this, the worksheet is going to populate Willamette's costs, tuition fees, estimate for room and board, and so on and so forth. And then we're going to put your financial aid award here based on the criteria in the earlier part of the letter. And then it will have the direct costs minus aid, the total, and so on and so forth. What you can do then is take your awards from other colleges and universities and place them in here as well. And you can do a comparison of what the total is that you'd be paying to attend a particular university compared to one. We think our financial aid is so strong that we can compete with just about anyone these days. But some students do get really large packages that cover everything. We know this happens. So this will give you a really great way of estimating those costs minus the financial aid too. So that'll be included in that letter. And so I'm going to go over a couple of things here that are just some tips. Again, I said always compare net costs. So the costs are different between different institutions, and sometimes they can be profound. Financial aid can be different as well. So a larger scholarship, if you're getting a larger scholarship from another institution, it may not mean that it's better value, that you're getting a better financial aid package. It might mean that you still owe more than another institution. There's a lot of hesitancy to take federal student loans. I understand that. They can be very helpful for students in achieving their goals. This is one way that students can establish good credit after they graduate. There are some pretty good repayment calculators to let you know and determine what you would pay each month. So I generally counsel people to not fear student loans. You can take too much, and that's really been established. Generally speaking, most students don't take too much as undergraduate students. Graduate students sometimes do, but you can utilize these repayment calculators to get an idea of what you're going to pay on a monthly basis after you graduate. There are also, last tip, thousands of what we call private scholarships. And these are scholarships that various organizations make available to students and sometimes to families to pay for college. They come directly from the organization. So Rotary Club has these. There's all kinds of different ones. I mean, there's literally thousands of them. Usually they require students and families to do some sleuthing, to look at some different websites and review the scholarships and determine whether or not they qualify for them. There's sometimes an application for them. It does require some work to figure these out, but it's free money. And we all like that. And you might be able to do some research and spend some time doing this and be able to qualify for it. I'm going to, again, at the end of the presentation, include a slide that has like a clearinghouse for some of these things too. So always check out private scholarships. I think that can be very helpful. The local ones or some sort of affiliate ones are usually the best place to start. And so here's the relevant links. And again, this will be sent to you after this presentation. Here's the actual application for the FAFSA. This is the online one. The PDF that I showed to you, you can get that as well. Again, don't fill it out. Just use the online one. But it's nice to be able to look at that and get an idea of what they're going to ask for. Here's the site where you can get your FAFSA ID. Here's the IRS data retrieval tool. Again, this allows you to pull in your 2020 taxes into your financial aid, free financial aid application. It saves you from populating some information. Then there's some contact information here. The admissions department, here's the page. It has contact information, financial aid. This, I put in a very simple student loan repayment calculator as well. It's from finaid.org. It's a nice website that helps you get an idea. There's all kinds of various contingencies on loans and such too, but at least this gives you an idea of what, if you were to take $10 or $15 or $20,000 in student loans, what that would cost per month. And then FastWeb is an external scholarship search engine to find private scholarships. So I included that here as well. Okay, that's it for the presentation part. Again, that part will be available to you. So Angie, we're going to stop recording here for a second.